well, welcome everybody as the Zoom fills in here. My name is Amber Samdahl. I'm the Director of Design Innovation at PBS Wisconsin, and I am part of the Public Media Innovators group. Big thank you to Nita for supporting our work. And on behalf of my Public Media Innovators colleagues, David Huppert and Chad Davis, we're really excited to be sharing the webinar today with our Marketing Communications PLC friends as well. So thank you to everyone in the Marcom group as well. We'll hear from them in a minute. And just, thanks all for joining today. We have a really exciting webinar. We have 4 presenters. We're going to hear all sorts of different connections to AI through, digital, social strategies, marketing strategies. We'll hear about custom GPTs. What is a custom GPT? You'll hear about Claude AI, a really cool tool called Opus AI, and how you can actually take away some of these tools and prompts for you to use at home. So please feel free throughout the webinar to put questions in the chat as we go. We'll have 4 presentations, and then we'll have a dedicated Q&A time at the end. So feel free to put questions in the chat, and make sure you select to everyone in the chat, because sometimes it defaults to host and panelists. So make sure you select everyone. And I'm just going to share a couple links before I turn it over to Eric Ernst. First, here's a link to our Public Media Innovators site where you can find a recording of this webinar within about a week, and we'll share resources, chat, transcript, and the recording up on that site within a week. And then my shameless plug for next month's webinar. For anyone who is interested in games, and particularly if you're skeptical of public media participating in the games world, we have a really, really interesting webinar coming up in June, bringing in a researcher from AARP who specializes in gaming research for the 50+ audience. So this is really exciting. She's done some incredible work looking at a potential audience that we're overlooking. This is a really good place for public media to be thinking about for our future. So I encourage people to register for that as well.
Amber, tell them about next week real quick, about Tech Summit. They can find us there.
And then next week, yes, absolutely. There's annual meeting, which several of the people on this webinar today will be participating in and presenting at. And also a Tech Summit. We will be doing participating in an AI discussion at Tech Summit next Thursday, as well as a session looking at games from different stations across public media. So check us out there as well. Let us know, drop a note if you will be there. I'm happy to connect. And now I'm going to hand it over to Eric Ernst, who's the chair of the Marketing Communications PLC.
Thanks, Amber. Yes, I'm Eric Ernst, Associate Communications Director at PBS Wisconsin and Chair of the NIDA Marketing and Communications Peer Learning Community. All of us on the Marcom PLC are just so grateful to be collaborating with our Innovators colleagues on this webinar that will offer some real-life examples of how the innovative AI work that our colleagues are doing across the system could inform and inspire work at our own stations. I want to invite you to watch for more webinars from both of our PLCs on this and other topics over the next year, topics that affect all of our work. And those webinars are only made more useful by your feedback. So please reach out to us, myself, Eric Ernst, our Marketing and Communications PLC liaison, Tanya Weber, with ideas that you have around how these opportunities can best serve your work moving forward. In the past year, we've done sessions similar to this. We've done sessions on telling our station stories. We've done open office hours where we just gather together as groups to talk about topics of the day. And so we welcome anyone who works in the marketing and communication space to join us for those sessions. As Amber mentioned, like any discussion around AI, we expect there's going to be many questions, and we welcome those in the chat. And we'll be collecting those as we go along and getting to as many of them as possible at the conclusion of our presentation. So I'm not going to hold up us getting to the real content today any further, so I'll hand back to Amber to do our first introduction.
Thank you, Eric. All right, I'm excited to introduce our first presenter. Jacqueline Lowe is the Director of Interactive at South Florida PBS and has been doing some really incredible and innovative work at her station. So I'm going to hand it over to Jacqueline to walk us through. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Amber. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it works. Can everybody see my screen? Awesome. Okay. So yeah, today I want to talk about a custom GPT that we built specifically for our content team. A custom GPT is essentially just a custom chatbot that is used for a specific purpose or a specific job. Really, that's what it kind of comes down to. And so just kind of talk about briefly about why we built it. We have a lot of content that we're putting up on digital platforms every day. And it's coming from different places. We have, producers, editors, you have social media coordinators, and they're all prior to this, they were all kind of doing their own thing in terms of like where they were generating the metadata, how that metadata was getting transferred from team member to team member. So it was a little bit of a mess, honestly. We had like incomplete metadata. Some things weren't being done that should have been done. There was an inconsistent voice and format throughout the content team. And a lot of our producers and editors kind of just basically was an afterthought because it could be very time consuming creating all this metadata for all these digital pieces. So using the custom GPT, we were able to have a better consistent voice and format, much quicker turnaround for all this metadata. So producers and editors could send it to our social media folks and not have to worry about it. And we have internal social toolkits that we deliver back and forth, and it made those internal social toolkits more robust, a lot more organized, and so everybody was kind of on the same page. And so what our GPT does is it basically takes specific inputs, and we typically use transcripts as kind of like the assets that builds all the metadata. So we take transcripts. We also do video descriptions, literally just a text description. And we add that into the GPT, and then it will output all of these specific assets. So YouTube descriptions, video titles. It will give you 5 suggested video titles, hashtags, timestamps, which is really crucial for YouTube because you can create chapters in YouTube, and that helps with SEO. It helps with discovery. Social copy based on the platform. So it will optimize copy based on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You'll also generate thumbnail text. So if you're creating custom thumbnails, it will give you ideas for the text to put on the thumbnail. And then social engagement questions. So if you are trying to interact with your audience and you want to, generate more social content, it will also generate engagement questions based on that asset. And so here's just a brief of like how it flows. You add your asset. You can select your outputs. The default is that it will create all of this for you unless you want something specific. You generate it. And then if you want, let's say, additional video titles, or you wanted to optimize something further, additional prompting. The big one is making sure that you're editing everything. You never want to copy and paste something straight from the GPT. You want to edit, making sure that there's no typos, that the people's names, locations are correct, and things like that, and then post. So I'm going to show you quickly what that looks like. So this is what the GPT looks like. So we have 4 boxes here. So in case somebody does not want to prompt, you could literally just say, please create metadata from this transcript, copy and paste the transcript or add the file here. Or you can just click on this box that says create metadata from a transcript, click on it. It's going to ask you, hey, can you please upload like a transcript? I will generate all of this for you. And so I conveniently have a transcript. Copy this, and you just literally paste it in. You paste the transcript, you hit enter. It's going to think for a second. This was just a short, like 1-minute transcript from one of our Stargazer interstitials. And so you'll see it starts generating YouTube video titles, podcast titles. So we do have some podcasts. So it just that live on YouTube and other places. So it gives you that. YouTube descriptions, and you'll see there's we have URLs set in place, and I'll show you how we generate that. Again, timestamps. You always want to make sure that the timestamps are accurate. I do notice that sometimes ChatGPT will hallucinate sometimes when it comes to this. So just double checking that the timestamps are accurate. Hashtags per platform. So you get YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok hashtags. Thumbnail text options. Again, this is the text that you would use to create a custom thumbnail. Social copy optimized per platform. So your Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok copy, and then social engagement questions. So that's it. I mean, this just really helped us again with being more consistent, having all of the producers and editors being able to quickly turn around metadata. And it's made our social media team, it's much easier for them to just go in and just copy and paste and start scheduling, since we have so much content. So one other thing before I finish, I just wanted to show you how to build, quickly how to build this. It's fairly simple, actually. So if you're in ChatGPT and you're in your normal kind of dashboard here, you want to go to Explore GPTs. And then there's our create icon. And then once you hit create, it's going to take you to this page here, which looks like this. So you're going to see a create and then a configure. And these essentially do the same thing. Create is something, if you want to, it's based on prompting. So there's nothing super technical. You're really literally just creating the GPT through conversation, through prompts. So if you want to create something fast, you want to test something out and see if it could work, and this is a great way to do it, where you don't have to have too much customization and you want to do something really quickly. That's what the create is for. And then configure is where there's more customization. You can do a lot more refining of your GPT. So obviously you can put the name, description. Instructions is where you would add your prompt. And so this is the base prompt we used to create the GPT. And just a couple of things to note with this is that the GPT prompts, we really emphasize optimization per platform and SEO and aligning with current trends per platform, best practices. And we really emphasize that in the prompt so that it would give us the best output for each platform. And then for specifically, we have for YouTube, we're always adding our socials at the end of all the descriptions. And so instead of having to write it out every single time, the GPT will provide that for us. And we, sorry, we specify that in the prompt. And then if we keep going, there's conversation starters. This is where you add those little kind of like, I guess essentially like prompts for the GPT in case somebody doesn't really know how to, engage right away. So you do that here. And then let's say you have a brand guideline, you have a style guide for your organization or anything like that. You can actually upload that here. And in the prompt, tell the prompt to refer to the style guide when outputting all of this copy, so that you're in line with your brand and your style guides. And you can do that here. And then other capabilities, you can attach it to the web so it can search the web if you need it. Image generation, all of that can also be added. So that's pretty much it. That's our GPT.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We have collecting questions, which we'll gather together at the end. But really quickly, can other stations use this custom GPT?
Yes. So this one in particular is public, and I'm going to actually add the link in the chat for anybody who wants to use it. Obviously, it's geared towards our organization, so like our links are going to populate and things like that. But just to get an idea of how to use it and play with it, and by all means, you can definitely go ahead. And go ahead and use it.
Wonderful. Well, we will share out at the end. We have collected together notes from all of our presenters and links and contact information for them if you do want to follow up with questions. So we'll be sure to share that at the end. And we're collecting all these great questions to address as well for our Q&A section. So thank you, Jacqueline. We will move next to Mark Rickers, who is a digital content editor for PBS Wisconsin, who's going to talk about his work in Claude.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to share two tools today, actually. And a lot of it dovetails with how custom GPTs work. Claude has a similar system. They just call them projects. But in this case, these are tools that are geared toward helping editors like me coaching producers who are mainly focused on their video production, helping them write better descriptions of their videos, thinking about things like alt tags or things that they might not necessarily think of when they're posting images as parts of their stories and things like that. So I think the important thing to keep in mind with integrating AI tools into your workflow is that you're solving a specific problem and you're kind of starting with a human input and you end with a human output. So the AI is really just helping kind of standardize things, speed things up, make things more efficient. So I'll start with this tool that was graciously shared by my my boss, Tim Schneider. And I'm hoping that my screen share works okay. And you are hopefully seeing GPT and not my time card. So in this case, it's a pretty simple input. You have an image and you need an alt tag of it, and we're trying to train people on what's the difference between an alt tag or a title tag or things like that. So the input is just going to be any image. So you can just drag that right in. We'll upload it. And this is very similar to the custom GPT we just saw. It's just basically being instructed, like, if I give you an image, identify it, here's a set of best practices around what we want in an alt tag. So, and this already kind of underscores the sort of the human output piece, older adult holding orange flowers. I don't know that we would necessarily like label someone's age in an alt tag. So that's why it's important to review. But this is the kind of thing where, we go from a lot of stories that might not have any alt tags, any text on the images, to being able to pretty much standardize every image on our site has a really good alt tag on it. So that's a really simple tool. So what we do with Claude is a little bit more complex. We're essentially transforming transcripts, like we just talked about Jacqueline's presentation, into we're really focused on Media Manager for this product for this Claude project. So what it's going to do is three things. It's going to help you. It's going to take transcript data, any working copy that a producer might already have, and then SEO data, and help us kind of coach edits on how to improve something for discoverability and for clarity, and even just basic things like AP style. So we can start with a transcript. So just being given the transcript file, again, similar to the custom GPT, Claude has these basically like a set of expectations and the role that it's supposed to be playing and what I expect as a deliverable. So right now it's reading the transcript. And this initial document is essentially it's brainstorming possible titles, short descriptions, long descriptions, and SEO keywords for Media Manager. I find this point in the process is actually just best for showing you what bad titles might look like. But it kind of jumpstarts the brainstorming process of, like, you can present some options to a team that might be struggling with naming something. You can start thinking about what are the keywords that you want to integrate from the transcript itself. You can also do stuff like, because you have the access to the full video, this is a transcript of a documentary about lighthouses. So I want to be sure to mention all the lighthouses we actually visit in the doc. And in this way, you can kind of have a dialogue about how you might want to tweak descriptions and how you might reference things from inside of the transcript. Sometimes it takes a while to think. That one doesn't feel that complicated, but so this box where it says thought process, this is Claude is using, it's called a chain of thought model. It's essentially talking to itself to kind of work out the best way to solve the problem. So this is kind of, it's going through the doc and trying to find all the named lighthouses. And now it's going in and rewriting these brainstorming descriptions. So now let's say a producer has handed in some copy and we want to see if maybe we can refine it. So we do a lot of our copy composition in Airtable. You can just straight up post a screenshot from Airtable and it's set up to say like, oh, okay, this means you want to revise something rather than brainstorming. And what this is going to do is essentially take SEO best practices and kind of critique what we already have and maybe make suggestions, and it'll do a side-by-side comparison. It's just taking a little bit of time. So I find this to be pretty useful when working with producers, because you can make these kinds of suggestions of like, hey, maybe be sure to mention Lake Michigan. And then the producer might say like, well, Lake Michigan is not, like, we can be more specific than that. So again, you're kind of jumpstarting the conversation around what should be in the final copy. But it also lays out its reasoning for why an edit would make sense. So like in this case, naming lighthouses, using terms that have some high SEO value. And then the final piece that this can do, I think, is actually maybe the most interesting. So we subscribe to a service called SEMrush. It's a search engine marketing platform that gives us a lot of like search volume and search intent information. So I'll take the keywords that Claude generates, run an analysis on them in SEMrush, and then share the screenshot back to Claude. You could do this with Google Analytics or like any data tool. Claude is flexible enough for that, but my instructions are kind of queued to what we have available. And now again, it's the chain of thought. It's reviewing everything that's in this screenshot. It's pulling the search intent and the volume and things like that. Now it's drafting a third report, which is a keyword report. And this is usually a good time that I go get coffee or things like that when it's running. Okay, so in this keyword report, this is laying out. So this is basically taking, and this is another thing I really like AI tools for. It's essentially taking information from varying platforms and really like quickly formatting it for what you need in a moment. So in this case, it's like, it's been told like, hey, give me a list that's easy to copy paste into a platform like Media Manager, but also give me, I was going back and trying to revise some stuff. But also give me a breakdown of like, what are the unique, based on the data from SEMrush and like your own analysis, what are the unique keywords we might use? What are the high, medium keywords based on specific categories? But then this is something I take to producers all the time. This is essentially just recommendations of like verifying like, hey, is your title good or could it use some tweaking based on the data? Are there words you should be sure to include in the short description, sure to be included in the long description? These are all suggestions, and that's always how I frame them. It's not something where we're trying to cram a bunch of keywords in every description, but it's this kind of thing where you can be kind of data informed and kind of show people how it might enhance their work as you're going. So I think that's the long and short of it. I will provide instructions for the Claude project. Oh, I can stop sharing my screen. And then I can actually share a link to the alt tag writer. And thank you again to Tim for being willing to share his work. There you go, in the chat.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, encourage everyone to take a look at that. And yeah, keep putting your questions in the chat. We will keep moving along because we got more great examples to share. Next up is Jonna Kelly, who's the marketing director at KSPS in PBS. And I'd love to invite her up to share about her work.
Thanks, Amber. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? I'm going to talk a little bit today about how we use
Can't see your screen yet.
can't. Oh, shoot. How about now?
There we go. Got it.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about how we used a custom GPT to create an Gary Stokes Speak, which is for PR and engagement. Yeah, we just needed conversational AI to connect, inform, and inspire. So we created Gary Stokes Speaks because we needed to communicate our mission consistently across platforms while maintaining Gary's specific style of communication. He's very warm and sincere and is a community leader in our region. And I saw potential to scale personal engagement, especially for community outreach, donor support, and advocacy messaging. This has been coming in very handy the last few weeks as we're all battling the federal funding crisis. And this GPT was designed to reflect Gary's trusted tone, part neighbor, part storyteller, part advocate for public media. So how we configured it, we built this in OpenAI's ChatGPT platform. I think Jacqueline had such a wonderful description earlier in our presentation about how to do this. So reference that in the recording. We configured using a persona brief. And for that persona brief, it was pretty detailed. I wanted to include real leadership traits for Gary and recurring values. So in the persona brief, I asked GPT to speak as someone who was really passionate about education and cultural access, grounded in regional storytelling and public service, and speaks like a neighbor and not a corporation. I also gave specific instructions to emphasize our mission, values, community programs, and tone. And then I integrated a lot of Gary's internal messages to make sure that it sounded authentically Gary. So that meant that I combed through some of the messages that I've received from Gary over the past couple years. Some of them were pretty lengthy and were like to all staff, but some of them were like just more anecdotal, short messages that he sent to me. But these ended up being anchor phrases that GPT uses naturally when it writes stuff for me. And then I added guardrails to ensure that the tone remained hopeful, inclusive, and community focused. I did spend a lot of time adding guardrails to this because it was so important that we got it exactly right. So guardrails include persona reinforcement instructions. So I used phrases like speak with the warmth of a community leader who sees every viewer as a neighbor. I added tone boundaries and filters, so parameters to avoid alarmist and accusatory or overly corporate language. And then I added bias mitigation and inclusive framing. So some of those prompts were avoid assumptions about audience demographics, default to inclusive people first language. So as an example, instead of this GPT using terms like viewers, it might use families across our region. And then I also wanted to make sure that we were not engaging in political commentary or polarizing topics. So we can speak about things like public media funding or policy in general, but this GPT avoids taking political stances or critiquing specific public figures or parties. And then after we configured it, we needed to refine it. So that meant that our team did some real world testing. So we asked Gary to write a blog post. And so he wrote a couple of paragraphs for his blog. And then we asked the GPT to help Gary write this blog post. And then we created feedback loops, which is really just the marketing team and Gary. So we sent him what GPT wrote, with this GPT wrote, Gary Stokes speaks, and then asked him, does this sound like you? And then he refined accordingly. So he adjusted responses to reflect local context. He added things like using the actual names of towns and the communities we serve. We added inland Northwest references, local programming, and familiar community partners. We made sure to add community partners that were longstanding, so like Spokane Public Schools or Spokane Public Library, to just make sure that this will remain authentic longer. And then we added internal context access. So like Jacqueline mentioned, we uploaded things like notes from our board meetings or our voice and tone guide to help refine this GPT. A couple of best practices for using Gary Stokes Speaks. We use it for drafting messages to members, viewers, and donors, answering community questions, and talking points, emails, or scripts. Recently, we use this to help us write some scripts for public media giving days. We do not use this for factual or legal statements, replacing human judgment. It's a support tool, not a decision maker. I think Mark talked about that very well during his presentation. And a couple of tips for using an AI for PR engagement is be clear in your prompts. An example that I'll use is write this as Gary during a pledge drive, which we did recently, and this worked and helped. And let it inspire, but always review and personalize before sending or publishing. There has never been an instance that we didn't need to personalize something after AI has generated it for us. So I also included some more best practices in notes that Amber will share at the end of this presentation. But yeah, that's how we're using AI for PR engagement with our community.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonna. It was really fun to see. Yeah, we'll be sure to share out all the great tips and details that you've shared with everyone. So we will be sure to get that to everyone at the end here. And next up, I'd like to welcome Marianne Lane, who is the Director of Educational Content at Georgia Public Broadcasting. Welcome, Marianne.
Thanks, Amber. Hi, everybody. For my portion of today's presentation, it's going to be a little bit different. So we're not feeding prompts into any kind of AI system. Instead, we're going to take existing content that you probably already have, and we're going to format it into a shorter version. So vertical videos for YouTube, TikToks, Reels for Instagram, all that good stuff, and basically clipping content that you already have and thinking smarter and not harder. So the tool that I have to show y'all today is called Opus Clip AI. Just real briefly, because I know people are going to ask, there's 4 different versions of it. There is a free version. The credits, when you see credits pop up, that just means minutes. So you have up to 60 minutes per month if you want to test it out and explore a free version. Our team has pro, but we split it across all of our divisions. So I work in the education department, but we also share it with everybody else within the organization. But if you're looking to just kind of, get your feet wet, the starter is good, although pro looks to be better because it's cheaper right now. But this is just the breakdown of what the different options are. But there is a free version if you want to explore it. So this is what the homepage looks like. You'll see up here, this shows me how many minutes I have left. So it helps track the number of credits that you have. And so you can kind of keep an eye on things and see how it's being used.
Oh, Marianne, sorry,
Yeah.
we can't see your screen.
That's right, because I didn't share it. Just jumping right in. Sorry, y'all.
Thanks.
There we go. How about now?
All good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So just real quickly, there's 3 different paid versions, and then there is a free version, so you can explore from there. But this is what the homepage looks like. It works with Rumble, YouTube, Vimeo, Zoom, Twitch. Wherever your content is living, you can post it into Opus Clip, and then it will clip from there. I'm going to show y'all an example of a video that we have. It's 8 minutes and 46 seconds long, so not the right kind of length that we're looking for these short versions. So you just drop your link, and let's say that you have kind of I know a lot of documentaries like to open with like really beautiful scenery, and that may take up 30 seconds or so. You can clip it, your clip, and then so that you're not using up those credit minutes. Same thing if there's something on the end that you want to shave off, or if there's a long introduction and you just kind of want to get to the meat of things, you can trim it using this tool here, and that helps save credits. You can also search by keywords and separate them by commas if there's a particular topic that you're wanting to look for. And then also, let's say that you have a promo that's formatted for interstitial, and you actually don't want it clipped, and it's the right kind of length, but you just want it reformatted from 16:9 to 9:16. It will do that for you as well. So you can click on the Don't Clip section. You can also set up templates, so you can add in your own color features, how you want your captions to pop up, because that's another great feature of Opus Clip is it will auto-generate captions, and then you can kind of design what that looks like. So you can set up templates, or you can just go to presets, and there's several options that you can choose from. And you can kind of see what those presets look like there. And then there's also different aspect ratios. So if you want to do 9:16, a 1:1, or 16:9, you can select that too. But because I mostly use this for our social channels, which I manage our education, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram profiles, as well as X. But the video content is really helpful to have that 9:16. So then you would go and click to get your clip. I've already clipped this in this case, so I'm not going to do it here. Save those credit minutes, but I'll show you what it spits out afterwards. So it's taken a nearly 9-minute video, and then it has given us 14 different options to choose from, which is pretty cool. You have a variety of different lengths. So some are slightly over a minute versus others are 18 seconds, 15 seconds. It will, in its generation, it will give you a rating, which I think is very helpful. This will tell you your virality score. So it's looking for things like hooks and the images, the image quality, the engagement for your audience. And so it just kind of gives a numeric score, which is really helpful. Sometimes I kind of think, well, 99 is like really high. Let me take a look at this and let me compare it to some of these ones that may not be as high. I always encourage people testing this out for the first time to take a look at multiple clips, because sometimes they're, it's AI, it's on a human, it does make mistakes. And sometimes the ones that have like the lower scores end up being the ones that I think would perform best. But I will show y'all, this is on peanuts. Georgia's the #1 peanut producing state in the country. So we have lots of content on peanuts. Maybe there's a peanut festival right around the corner or National Peanut Day, and I want something that's timely. It's, when Jimmy Carter passed, he was a peanut farmer. So that may be something I want to tap into as far as a trend. So taking something that exists, clipping it in Opus Clip is super useful. With the numeric score, it will also show what the different grades are. It will spit out a transcript. And then my favorite feature is that you can actually go in and edit. I recommend that for all the clips, especially when you're dealing with South Georgia accents. There's always something that is either misspelled or isn't punctuated correctly. So you can go in and you can directly edit the word, the text. You can also change the highlight. So let's say that I want the University of Georgia highlighted because that's an important piece of the story. I would go in, change the highlight. And again, this coloring comes from a preset that I've already included, so that automatically spits it out in yellow and green, but you can change those colors as well. You can also come in and you can clip it. So let's say that I want it shorter. You have a timeline down here. So it's very easy to drag and clip your content. You can also extend the clip. Let's say that it cut off a really important piece that you wanted to incorporate it. You could extend that as well. Another thing too that I think we come across often when we're reformatting something that's built for 16:9 and changing it up to 9:16 is things will get cut off, especially when you're dealing with lower third titles. All of a sudden you have this big chunky text at the bottom and you can't fully read it. You can have, there's multiple different options that you can do to change the look of this. So you could drag the screen to reorient it. You can also add in your logo or replace the image entirely. But I could also change it from fill, which is going to make it fill the entire screen. And I could do fit, which is going to take it back to its original format and blur that background. And then you can also switch it up. So here, the content that it has spit out has automatically made those adjustments from fit to fill to sometimes it will do split if you have multiple people on camera. But that's just a very easy way that you can go in and change that format. And then you can also track the person. So if there's somebody that you want it to focus on, if the person is moving, you can have the clip focus on them. And I'll show y'all real quickly what this
is determining the proper time.
Can you hear this?
Can
y'all hear this clip?
And it's based on the percentages of harvestable pods. It is part science. It is part art. The University of Georgia developed a chart that we can scrape the outer layer of the peanut hulls, and by looking at the color of the
So again, you can see how it's mixed and matched the fill versus the fit. And then again, it will do split screen as well. But yeah, there's just really simple edit tools. It's helpful for those who are maybe not super comfortable with video editing. But it's also helpful for those who, you may be a one-man band and you're managing content for your entire station, and you're also running 6 different social media channels. So it will match it will match what you're looking for, and then also just kind of give you suggestions on video titles and descriptions. But if you wanted to do more, you could also go in and you could export it into an Adobe file so that you could maybe there's not as many bells and whistles that are built into Opus and you want to do a little bit more, you can go and export it into a project file. You can also add in additional text, transitions. If it's sometimes it will cut something out and blend two things together, and maybe that blend isn't super seamless. So you can add in a transition. These are some like beta functions, the AI hook, and then incorporating AI B-roll. I haven't really exported it yet because I feel like the beta functions right now are just very, I don't know, touch and go. But you can definitely explore that. You can also embed music, and there's music that is free to utilize. So you don't have to worry about licensing and things of that nature. And then you can also establish a brand template. So that was that first piece that I was talking about. You can determine what the look and feel is going to be for your text, for your colors, whether or not you want it to pop up on screen, have multiple lines of text, one line of text, incorporate emojis, not incorporate emojis. There's a lot of variance in there. But yeah, we've been pretty successful with some of this. I do think that like when you are looking at your platform, however you can best speak to that platform typically performs really well. So like going in and actually scripting out something that has a hook that's good for TikTok, or leaning into a trend that's going to get more views. But if you're short on time, or you just don't have the bandwidth to produce a ton of content, this is a great tool for that. And I'll show y'all just an example. This was from, I guess it was last year. There was the eclipse that came through Georgia, and this was a piece of content that we had originally produced back in, I think it was 2017, was the previous solar eclipse. So the content was pretty much the same as far as like, how does an eclipse happen? So we just repurposed that and then published it for last year. So it got a lot of good engagement, did really well on YouTube Shorts. It got over 57,000 views. So it was super simple and probably took like 5 minutes of my time. So yeah, so it's great, especially if you have documentaries, long form videos, videos that are old and you don't know what to do with them. There's a lot of variance with it, but I definitely encourage y'all to check out the free version before you dive into a paid version. But the paid version is very cost effective. That's it for Opus.
Thank you very much, Marianne. All right, I'll turn it over to Eric, who's got a whole long list of great questions. And invite all the panelists to come back on.
Yes, I do. And please, we'll try to get through as many of these in the 10 or so minutes that we have here. I did want to start with one, though, that I think was prompted directly at Mark, but we'd welcome input from each of the panelists. And that is, how do you determine if a platform like Claude or ChatGPT or some other platform is the right choice for your needs? What are the things that you look for on those platforms?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear how other panelists chime in on that, but a lot of it depends on the task. So Claude, I've just found, and I've tried sometimes I've tried porting custom instructions between different models just to see how they perform. Claude has just kind of most consistently been a really good writer. I'd say it's easiest. I said in my chat response, it's good at coaching. It's really good at explaining in kind of gentle terms, like why this or that should be changed or things like that. ChatGPT is a lot better for analytical tasks. Things. One of the big things that comes up a lot, I feel like I bet there's a fair amount of people here who deal with media restoration or media preservation, doing things like taking pictures of physical media and then being able to convert that into metadata that needs to go into a spreadsheet. Like ChatGPT is really good at that sort of thing. So some of it, though, is kind of like, realistically, if your station's going to pay for one resource or another, like kind of just seeing what the model you have access to can do and then playing around with things around the edges.
Anyone else have thoughts on that in the
Yeah,
panel?
yeah, I just like to add that I agree with you, Mark. I do think that Claude is a better writer. And for us, we just kind of, as an organization, chose the enterprise version of ChatGPT, and that's why we're using it. But I do think that Claude is excellent as a writer, better than ChatGPT. And I do think that ChatGPT is great at the analytical side, data. Like I definitely agree with you on there. So I just wanted to let you know, put in my 2 cents.
I think for us too, ChatGPT was easy to invest in, and it was the easiest for people to understand because there is a lot of fear around using AI and like what's morally okay in this area. And so we just kind of picked the thing that sounded the most familiar and that was most accessible. And it does integrate with a lot of tools that we already use. Um, but I did get some tips from Mark because we also use Airtable, and so I was taking furious notes listening to everybody. But yeah, I think it was ease of use, familiarity, and going slow because people are a little bit scared.
So I think to that point of people being scared and familiarity, there was one question for you, Jana, that spoke to that a little bit. And that question was, our audience is aware that the copy generated from the tool that you described is not the specific creation of the person, quote, speaking. And how do you think through that, and how do you address that in your space? And that's in line with some of the other questions
Yeah.
that we received around whether you're transparent, when organizations are transparent around the use of AI.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think that needs to be determined by your team. You have to talk about it openly and like, what are we going to do here? And we have never published anything ever that wasn't, filtered through a human. So we use AI as a tool. Um, and there's this quote that I really love. We all attended a masterclass as a group here at the station around AI and how to use it. And there was this phrase that I think about often is that AI is, consider it brain prosthesis. So it's not replacing you or your thoughts. It is enhancing what you can do, or maybe ideation. So yeah, we would never publish anything without having a human filter first. And talk to your team, figure out what the rules are around this. We talked to other stations to get their input about that. Arizona was a great resource for us.
And I think that aligns. I'd open up to other people. Not that specific question was for Jana, and I know a few people have answered similar questions in the chat here. But what are the approaches that your stations are taking to around those questions of transparency? I know that as Mark nodded to at PBS Wisconsin, these are conversations that are still in progress and that are continuing to happen. And in our case, as a joint licensee that's also partially attached to the state and partially attached to university, we have different regulations that we need to, and expectations that we need to align with those. And so I know each station will have different approaches to that, but I think that transparency is trust is something that is at the forefront of public media, and I'm hopeful that, like here at PBS Wisconsin, that these decisions are being made with that leading in the forefront, and I think that that's a very possible thing to do.
Yeah, in our case, we have an ethics policy that lays out how we think about using AI tools generally. And then we have disclosure requirements around basically if the public is being handed something that was directly created by a generative AI system, then we disclose that it was. But if we're using it as an internal tool, then we don't always disclose its use.
I think other people have weighed in similarly in the chat. If anyone has anything additionally to add, feel free. If not, there was a specific question for Marianne, and I think that you You shared some of this, but I wanted to get back and make sure that it didn't get missed. How, in the end, how clean are the edits that you're seeing? The questioner asked, no upcuts or downcuts. Does it fade or cut to and from black? Are those options you can choose? Are you able to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, you can build in, there's that transition feature. So you can do a fade to black on the front or back end or in between clips. Generally I would say that they're pretty clean, although sometimes I see like the next word kind of lingers in where it's been trimmed. So you always want to go back and clean up the captions but generally speaking, yeah, I would say that it's relatively clean. Like others have mentioned, again, Opus Clip is a tool, and so you always need to have that human element to look at the captions, make sure things are spelled and punctuated correctly, and then also just from an editorial perspective, that the open and that the end is where you want it. I know that there's been some questions about like the ethics surrounding uploading a link to Opus Clip and then that being used as like a trained feature for AI. I think that's a really important concern and comment, and is not one that we've really had an extended conversation about. So I'll definitely be talking with leadership about how we utilize it. But in this case with Opus, we're not manipulating anybody's voice. We're not changing anybody's likeness. But yeah, I guess it's one of those things that like once you're out on the internet, can the AI use it? Or is it like once you feed the beast, it's like, oh, this is, now I'm using it for training. Yeah, those are really valid questions, but we do not inform people when we're clipping it, just because our usage rights are pretty much in perpetuity and how we see fit, as long as we're not manipulating what the person is saying or the purpose.
Excellent. All right, so we are very close to time. I want to fit one last question, speed round. You all will have like 10 seconds to answer this. Daniel asks, did you all learn to use these tools on your own, or did you get some professional training? So the way I would prompt it for the speed round is, what is your best one tip or suggestion for people who want to sort of get their feet wet and put their hands in the sandbox of AI? And I'll start with you, Mark.
I would say talk about AI at work. I think I have a very supportive supervisor, so we have a lot of experiments that happen in-house, but I'd also definitely encourage you to subscribe to one of these services on your own, and learn how it works. And that way you can kind of get the literacy in the tools and how they work and how they're evolving over time. That also gives you a little bit more flexibility to like try something for a little bit and then hop over into a different system before your institution makes a big investment in something.
All right, Jana.
I really highly recommend that masterclass that I referenced earlier. It was awesome. It helped our organization understand how and why to use AI and what it actually is, specifically with ChatGPT. And also, I agree with Mark. We subscribed to like the business tier of ChatGPT, so there is better functionality. You can turn things off. Yeah, that's my answer.
All right, Jacqueline.
Yeah, for us internally, we do all staff meetings where we bring in somebody from the AI world and they kind of discuss like what's going on. And I think that's how it kind of like jump started these conversations internally at the organization. So yeah, I mean, if there's some like-minded people on the staff that are interested in this, try to like have some talks and get together and speak on it. And then my other piece of advice is just to jump in. Like I literally just went on ChatGPT, went on Claude, went on to all of these things and just started playing around with it, seeing what the capabilities were, seeing what was possible. And that's kind of how I started.
Excellent. All right, and Marianne.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's kind of hit the nail on the head. You don't have to dive in head first. You can take little baby steps and kind of get a feel for it. And I think everybody's shared opportunities to do something pretty simple. But yeah, we also have at Georgia Public Broadcasting, we have an AI team. And then we all come together, learn new tools, and then discuss ethics and help define that line of what we cross and what we don't.
Excellent. Well, thank you to everybody who joined. Amber, is there anything else that you would like to add? I saw that you had your pitch because you already have another webinar planned for next June. I want to extend a great thank you to all of our presenters, and an additional thank you to our friends in the Innovators group who helped us collaborate on this.
Yes, thank you everyone for participating and for joining and for the collaboration. I'll put in the chat again one more time the link to all the great notes, links, and topics discussed here today. So check that out as well. And yes, there will be a recording posted in about a week from now, so you all can rewatch and re-enjoy the discussion. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.